Nirvana Prakarana, The Transcendence. Chapter 4, The Story of Shila. The bus slowly negotiates a steep gradient. It has left behind the concrete jungle of Coimbatore, an industrial city in southwestern Tamil Nadu, and has entered the lush green forests of the Western Ghats. A group of students from the local government college, along with the head of the Department of Botany, is in the bus. Peculiarly enough, there are only 4 botany students, and the other 6 students are either from the faculties of arts or commerce. Though the botany students and their teacher are on a specimen collection trip, the others too are accompanying them, as they not only respect the teacher, who is like an elder brother to them, but are convinced that they too can learn more about life. Professor Rajendran has been in the field of life sciences with a few papers in the international journals to his credit. But he is more popular among students for his innovating teaching methods, not only the life sciences like botany and zoology, but about life itself. He is the officer in charge of the National Service Scheme of the college. The 6 boys belonging to the faculties of arts and commerce had been notorious and even dangerous because of their juvenile activities, and considered to be having only nuisance value by the other members on the staff. But Rajendran has succeeded in bringing them around and hopes to utilize their extra energy for some constructive work through his love and patience. As they get down from the bus, almost in the deep mountain forest, one of the students wonders whether they have got down at the right place. For there is no sign of any civilization nearby, not even any huts. The teacher assures them that this is the spot, as they have come there more than twice. Leaving the rough road, they start walking into the forest, which gets thicker every few steps. The group, however, is in very high adventurous spirit and keeps progressing towards its destination. Nearly half an hour and perhaps a kilometer later, the forest starts clearing and they hear the roaring sound of water. Taking the help of the sound, Rajendran leads the group. Suddenly, they come face to face with their destination of the day, a waterfall. Everyone without exception is stunned by the breathtaking sight of the water falling from a height of nearly 100 feet. The roar of the fall increases as if in welcome. The foam and the droplets reach them as if the fall is happy to have them. The trees have healthier foliage here. Gradually, one begins to hear the other sounds of varieties of birds and insects dwelling in the region. Climbing the rock overlooking the falls, the group sits in the shade of a boulder, enjoying the nature around while relaxing. None of them has spoken, and yet there is a perfect communication between them through nature. But the habit of language is obstinate, and one by one they start coming back to the verbal plane, and the last one to do so is the teacher, and only because a question is asked by a student. Though he is hesitant, he starts talking because of his love for his students, but he does not speak on the flora and the fauna, nor is it on the history of the locality or the fall. He speaks of nature and its beauty, on the influence the nature on life, and the wisdom it gives to the sensitive. It is not that the students are able to understand him, but they have come to love this man so much that they are able to feel what is implied rather than the words or thoughts. The seeds are grown, and the farmer in Rajendran is not really bothered when they fructify, for he knows that the seed is a seed only because it has the infinite patience to wait for the opportune moment to die, only to become a sapling. All these outings have been undertaken not only for academic reasons, but more so for de-weeding and preparing the ground and for the sowing the seeds of humanness in them. As a conclusion, he says, we will conduct a small experiment today. When you see anything, do not try to name it. Even if you know the name, just keep it aside and look deeply without passing any judgment like it is beautiful, ugly, good, bad. It is no doubt very difficult, but try it. And so starts their journey into the mystery of existence. The suggestion is not all that mysterious as it apparently appears. This is how an innocent child sees the world, with all its senses fully open. There is no previous knowledge or in simple terms, label that comes in between the object and the observer. No names to block their senses. What happens when we name a thing? It loses the mystery enveloping it, as the name helps in recollecting the information we have about the thing, and the mind once again goes back to past or projects itself into future. The name reduces an unknowable thing into a known label. For example, one sees a flower. It is facing the rising sun, has just blossomed. A few dewdrops balance delicately on its petals, reflecting the sunlight. The gentle breeze caresses the plant. A small spider weaves a web near to the flower, instinctively knowing that an insect will sway near the attracted by the color, fragrance, and a droplet or two of honey. The flower is connected with the earth through the roots of the plant. It is related to the sky, the sun, the air, insects, animals, and man. Why? Even the stars showering few quanta of light on it exercise an influence on it. It is related not only to the place, but time as well. But the moment we name the flower as a rose, it gets isolated and our experience becomes limited. Nay, the experience is blocked as we go on thinking about other roses, other places where roses are grown, the people who love to decorate themselves with a rose, for example, Jawaharlal Nehru, while the rose in front of us goes unnoticed. Most of our experiences, if not all of them, are really cerebral. Though we appear to be sensual or materialistic, we are psychic as our experiences are only mental, though the thoughts may have their cause on the things outside. Religion is an art of being in the present, in the here-now experience. That is where it differs from philosophy, which is at the level of logic or reasonable thought. Many persons would approach the Buddha with different intentions. For clarification of their doubts, for testing whether he was truly enlightened, for having intellectual discussions, or for seeking solutions to their problems, or for eradication of their misery. He would discourage everyone except the last two types of persons. He would always give a simile of a blind man discussing the nature of light. No matter how deep were his discussions or intellectual knowledge, the Buddha would say, the blind will never be able to know light. He would add that he was a Vaidya or a doctor who can cure the disease of blindness so that one could see and experience the light. Man's spiritual blindness is of two types. He is really blind owing to his involvement and indulgence with the gross, so much so that he is not even aware of his blindness. The second is, he knows intellectually that man is blind, but not he. And he knows all about the blindness and how to cure it theoretically and believes he can see. Obviously, the second type is almost incurable, while the first type can come to realize his follies and take steps for curing it. The Buddha never encouraged the intellectual discussions but stressed on the practical side of how to overcome the disease. It is unfortunate that his practical teachings were made into vadas or arguments by his later followers. This is mainly because of the nature of the mind to resort to thinking instead of doing. That is how philosophy and science parted ways. Philosophy starts and ends with logical thought, while science no doubt begins with logical explanation but continues with experimentation that is based on the sense experience. However, the science again limits itself into the sense experience as the senses provide data only of the world outside while completely ignoring the subject inside. This is where religion differs from both philosophy and science. It begins with one's own behavior and reactions to the outside world and continues to travel within till the subjectivity is encountered. But the temptation of involving oneself in intellectualization is so great that a seeker can fall an easy prey to it. For all methods are nothing but the tricks to quieten the activity of mind or to bring about the death of the mind. And no one, especially the mind and ego, is interested in one's own death. When the mind is free from the gross vasanas causing sense indulgence, one has to face the subtle vasanas that effect involvement. The gross have been called by the scripture as bhoga vasanas, while the subtle ones as the bheda vasanas. One of the principal factors that take one away from oneself is the differentiating thought, I and the world are different. In the previous sarga, the great sage Valmiki tries to give the hint of homogeneity of awareness by comparing it with the marrow of the bilva fruit. The sat or being aspect of reality does not have either difference or no difference. It is non-dual. In this present sarga, the author tries to touch upon the chit or awareness aspect of the reality. Continuing his enlightening discourse, Vasishta started telling another wonderful story. There is a glorious, huge granite rock which is lovable, clear, soft to touch, indivisible, strong, having endless dimensions, dense and non-differentiable. Out of it, innumerable lotuses have grown and bloomed. Some are visible while the others are not. Some become the higher ones, some the lower. Some are firm in their own state. There are count cells beyond counting in the middle of these lotuses without roots. Discuses also grow in great number between the lotuses. Hearing this, Rama remarked that he observed one such rock of Shaligrama on which Lord Vishnu stood. Shaligrama is a sacred stone found in the river Gandaka, symbolizing Vishnu. The Muni observed smilingly that the granite he referred to was not ever seen by Rama. He applied the word Shila to Chit in the heart, in which the different states of the world are. The Shila is the Jnana in the heart containing the worlds which are one yet many. In the non-dual and the strong Jnana rock, there are hosts of universes. When even earth, space, air, mountains and the quarters are combined do not make an infinitesimal particle of the rock. In this Shila, the sacred marks of the lotus, discus, and conch are found. The Shila is said to be in a deep sleep state. All the universes are but jnana itself, like the parts of the rock which are no other than the rock itself. The wise say that the rock is beyond all change, though, as in the rock, heterogeneous universes with their various qualities are absorbed. In the heart, the Chit is non dual without any difference. The forest of lotuses appear to be immovable, like a stone when seen from a distance. The universes, without being differentiated in jnana, are one Chit. Like the illustration of the marrow of the bilva fruit, in which the innumerable mundane eggs merge with the Sat, the universes merge with one Chit. Vasishta cautioned Rama that due to multiple universes, he should not conclude that there are many. He added that the Chit aspect of Brahman manifests as this motley of universe of forms, just like the lotuses in a granite. One can reach the seat of Atman through quiescence, equality of mind, and jnana. At the very outset, the author tries to give the non-ordinariness of the Shila through various adjectives. Snigdha, or lovable, indicates that it creates a oneness. Spashta, meaning clear, as it is self-luminous. Mrudusparsha, or soft to touch, suggests that it has joy. Mahavistara Shalini means of endless dimensions, indicating that which is beyond space. Nibida, or dense, suggesting only that and nothing else. Nitya Nirandra is non-differentiable. The granite stands for the Chit aspect of reality, which is one without the second, but at the same time nurtures the tendency to differentiate, the cause for all imaginable things. It is deeply internal when the process of thinking has not begun, and yet there is a tendency to think. Consequently, the lotuses symbolize the blossoming and withering nature of the phenomena, and the conch cells, the vibrative nature, as conch is associated with the sound. These two sargas are to be taken together. The bilva fruit refers to the Sat aspect or the pure being, while the Shila to the awareness. Both these aspects have been dealt here with a view of helping the seeker to understand his own stage. There is another practical hint. The seeker can recognize his real nature through awareness. When one is in the state of prajna or awareness, there are two things, namely, one who is aware and the things of which one is aware. When one transcends the identification of things, one is able to know the duality and hence the separation. When this non-identified state continues, one is pleasantly surprised to discover that the so-called external things exist only in the subject. Without the subject, there can be no creation. This is what is mentioned in the present sarga. Whereas the state of Sat, even the subjectivity has dissolved to become one without the second. Among all creatures, only man is in a state of anguish. Surprisingly, the author of the story of the trials and tribulations is man himself. This is because among all the creatures, man alone has the capacity to be aware. However, the animal is still lurking in man in the form of memory of all those stages of physical evolution he has undergone, as animal having unconscious or instinctive tendencies. At the same time, he has become aware, perhaps vaguely, that he is no more an animal but something higher, and he has to rise above them. But the awareness is only an infinitesimal part of his total consciousness. The major portion, that is almost 99%, remains unconscious. This is the greatest agony of man. He attempts to overcome this agony in two ways. First, and the easier, is to regress back into the unconscious through indulgence in basic urges. The second, which is arduous, is to go on increasing the conscious part till everything becomes conscious. To avoid the unconsciousness, every religion without exception prohibits any type of intoxication, as it takes man towards the unconscious. All spiritual practices have the single aim of increasing the awareness by conscious and deliberate action. Lao Tzu, the great sage of Tao, used to go for a morning walk every day. He used to be accompanied by his neighbor. They had a perfect understanding that there would be total silence throughout the walk. Once, the neighbor had a guest who too wanted to join the walk. The host warned him not to ever break the silence. They all walked silently and reached a spot where the sunrise was simply breathtaking. The guest exclaimed, "How beautiful!" They returned, and just as the neighbor and his guest were to part, Lao Tzu asked the neighbor never to bring the talkative guest for a walk. For the sensitive sage, even the exclamation was an unnecessary noise. Jesus the Christ gives a wonderful suggestion through his words, "Judge ye not." Because with judgment starts the avoidable mental activity, which in turn stops us from being in here now. Most, if not all of us, have the stubborn habit of constant mental chattering through the comparison with the past experiences or desires, which are nothing but the mental projections of the past into future. Instead, if we just flow with the existence by becoming more and more aware of the uselessness of the mental dialogue, we come to a point where we realize pleasantly that we are part of this great organic existence. In Mundakopanishad, a simile of a spider is given. The ultimate reality is like a spider which brings out the web from its own body and lives in it. The biologists observe that the spider knows about its prey getting entangled in its web through the vibrations created by the strands in the web. In the like manner, the reality and the existence in general are more intimately connected with each other. Vedanta declares that both of them are inseparable, like the dancer and his dance. The dance can exist only in presence of the dancer. Most of us are familiar with the word Mother Earth, as everything, animate as well as inanimate, is born to her, exists in her, and finally merges in her after death. The sages extended it much further and declared that it is mother existence, calling her Prakriti, as they realized that everything is interconnected. Nay, they went further and said that everything is one without the second, Advaita. And needlessly, the mind creates the walls of separation and in turn generates fear and its companions. But strange as it may seem, the creation of these walls and the resultant differentiation is a necessary part of growing up from the unconscious state of matter to the fully awakened and conscious Buddhahood.